We have to remember, when we think about a Franciscan message of a Jesuit pope, what a surprise this was. What was more improbable? A Jesuit pope? A pope named Francis? A pope from the end of the earth, as he said, from Argentina? I looked up the betting line. They actually bet on these things. And Cardinal Bergoglio was 25-1. And there were 15 cardinals ahead of him. Kim, if you and I had put a few bucks on Bergoglio, we could have a nice evening, but it wouldn't be a fundraiser. We'd have plenty. He was a big surprise. And Washington is really confused by papal elections. It's so unlike what we're going through right now. The papal election was a matter of 3 weeks. There were no candidates, no consultants, no commercials. And the only exit poll was a puff of white smoke. Father Tom mentioned that I was a fellow at Harvard. I don't know how that happened. When we explained to our kids that I was going to be a fellow at Harvard, my son Tim said, "Are we talking the real Harvard?" But it was a wonderful experience, and frankly what I found was there is a hunger for Catholic social teaching and for Franciscan values, even in a very secular place like Harvard. But they invited me back after I left for a panel on the new pope. Harvard doesn't do a lot of panels on popes. But like a lot of academic panels, this was full of assumed knowledge, where the other panelists said we could see this coming, it was time for a Latin American. It wasn't, so surprising. It was a Jesuit. Francis was a great saint. No big deal. And I went, come on. I said, if I had left here a few months ago, called the publisher and said, have I got a book for you? Chapter 1, the Pope resigns. Says he can't do this anymore. Chapter 2, we follow an old Jesuit on a bus around Argentina. Chapter 3, the old Jesuit gets elected Pope. He won't move into the palace. And he spends Holy Thursday washing the feet of women and Muslims. What do you think they tell me to do with my book? Well, it's quite a story, and we're watching it turn out. Some of my friends say, oh, this is all PR. Symbols are substance in a sacramental church. Where he lives, who he spends his time with. Tell us about who we are, and as well as who he is. One of my favorite stories about the Pope is on the night he was elected. Some of you have probably heard this. He returned to his same room. He came out at 6 o'clock in the morning to go to Mass, and there was a Swiss Guard standing there, with the pantaloons and the hat, with the spear. And he turned to him, the Swiss Guard tells his story, and he said, the Pope says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm protecting you. And he goes, when did you start protecting me? And he said, last night at midnight. And he goes in, the Pope goes into his apartment or his room, and brings out a chair. He says, have a seat. He says, I can't sit, I'm on duty. And he says, haven't you heard? I'm the Pope. Have a seat. And he says, have you had anything to eat? And he says, no. And he goes in his room and he brings out a sandwich. He says, have a sandwich. He says, I can't eat on duty. And the Pope says, you're not listening. I'm the Pope. Bon appetit. Well, how someone treats the people around them, not the most important people, but the rest of us, is really important. He is a walking, talking parable of the love of God. the joy of the gospel and the mercy of Christ. You've all heard the story. We're talking tonight about poverty. Poverty and the poor are at the center of his leadership. Apparently, it is a sin to tell what happens during a papal conclave. So what does Pope Francis do? First thing he does is call a press conference to tell them what happened in the conclave. And he said, when it was getting dangerous, when the boats were mounting up, his friend leaned over, gave him a hug and a kiss, and said, do not forget about the poor. He said, Pope, that's when I decided I'll call myself Francis, a man of the poor, a man of peace, and a man of creation. How would I like a church which is poor and for the poor? This reflects a major message. I'm going to show some slides because I think you would rather see what the Pope has said than what I have to say, because I think he shows us the way. In the very beginning, he said, I prefer a church which is bruised, hurting, and dirty, because it has been out on the streets, rather than a church which is turned inward. That is our cause in this room. He talks about the option of the poor in a very personal way. He says the Pope has to love everyone, but especially is obliged in the name of Christ to remind us all that the rich must help, respect, and promote the poor. The measure of the greatness of a society is found in the way it treats those who are most in need, those who have nothing apart from their poverty. These are not the priorities of the Senate Finance Committee. And then it gets very personal. He says, no one must say that they cannot be close to the poor because their own lifestyle demands more attention to other areas. This is an excuse commonly heard in academic, business, professional, and even ecclesial circles. None of us is exempt from care to the poor and concern for social justice. There are no excuses. And then he talks about the economy in stark terms. He says, just as the commandment says, thou shalt not kill, we have an economy today which kills. This is an economy which kills. And so he talks about an economy of exclusion, of inequality. He condemns trickle-down economics and corruption. He says we have to focus on the structural causes of poverty. Economic growth in and of itself is not enough. So it requires decisions, programs, geared to a better distribution of income, the creation of employment, the integral promotion of the poor that goes beyond a welfare mentality. One of the things I most admire about Father Larry and Catholic Charities and Monsignor Ensberg is here tonight, they're trying to lift up the dignity of the poor, to provide work. We need a safety net, but more than anything else, we need jobs where people can focus and contribute and raise a family. Two ways he has expressed this most directly. When he first was elected, he read of the drowning off Lampedusa. And he said, we need to go there. And he went, to the surprise of everyone, and said, who cries for the people who've been lost at sea? Who cries for the mothers carrying their babies, for the men looking for work? We have lost the capacity to weep. And he says, the church is with you in your struggles for dignity. And then he turns to the environment. I always remind our environmental friends that St. Francis was ours before he was theirs. And what he does most powerfully is join together the cause of justice and the cause of creation. And he says in his encyclical, that we have, and an ecological approach always has to be a social approach. We need to hear both the cry of the poor and the cry of the earth. So he has placed care for creation at the center of a Christian ethic, and he has placed care for the vulnerable at the center of an environmental ethic, making everyone uncomfortable. So to summarize, Pope Francis' message is he looks at the world from the bottom up, from the inside out. He worries most about the least and then about the rest of us. It is a message of encounter and engagement, and what could more affirm the work of this evening? He brings joy in the world of sadness, mercy, not judgment, hope at a time of fear. And he brought that message to our country just a little bit more than 6 months ago. He was an outsider. Washington, we think we're the center of the universe. But we are not the center of Pope Francis' universe. Who would have thought the first Pope to address Congress would come through Havana? And he says, I ask God to give us more politicians capable of a sincere and effective dialogue. Politics is a lofty vocation because it involves the common good, and I beg the Lord to grant us more politicians who are genuinely disturbed by society, and especially the state of the poor. And he brought this message to the Congress of the United States. I was privileged to be in the House chamber. It's a solitary figure. And it was hushed. And I looked at the two people behind him, John Boehner and Joe Biden, to be honest, this weekend at Notre Dame. I thought, here are two Catholic kids from Pennsylvania and Ohio who were around in 1960 when famous people, Norman Vincent Peale, Billy Graham, said John Kennedy should not be elected president because he would take advice from the Pope. And now the only thing they seem to agree on is they needed advice from the Pope. It was quite a moment. And what an honor to find a Pope talking to us of Abraham Lincoln and Dr. Martin Luther King, and yes, Dorothy Day and Thomas Merton. And he said to each of us and to our leaders, I would encourage you to keep in mind all those people who are trapped in a cycle of poverty. The fight against poverty and hunger must be fought constantly and on many fronts. And then he made his most powerful statement. He went out to the balcony overlooking many of us with all the powerful around him. The vice president, the speaker, the majority leader, some of the most powerful people on earth. And then he left to go and be with Monsignor Ensmer and the homeless of the city. He left the powerful for the most powerless and taught us what real priorities ought to be. This is a lesson we need to learn. This is the lesson for this campaign. Who would have thought that a Jewish secular socialist would quote Pope more than any other candidate, and that the potential Republican nominee would pick a fight with the Pope and still win? So it's an unusual year. One of the things I most admire about what we celebrate tonight is its focus on the laity. As a layperson, I want to thank the Franciscans in the room, clerics, the brothers, the sisters, who have said lay people will be leaders as Franciscans. And the Pope has said, we cannot clericalize the laity. It's not just whether we serve communion. I've done that. It's a great honor. It's not whether we just read the lessons. That's an honor as well. We are to spread the faith in our families, our workplaces, our schools, and neighborhoods. We are to be the leaven of the love of God in society. And then he summarizes the mission of tonight in our mission today says an authentic faith, which is never comfortable or completely personal, always involves a deep desire to change the world, to transmit values, to leave this earth somehow better than we found it.